Makaibari is a shining star in Lakshmi-Tea's firmament and is among the world's first certified biodynamic tea estates. Each of its leaves reflect the harmony between man's dedicated care and nature's gentle rhythms. Upholding a ritual as distinctive as the estate itself, Makaibari honors an age-old practice, delicately plucking two leaves and a bud under the light of a full moon. Makaibari's factory is where tradition blends seamlessly with innovation and precision. Lakshmi's master tasters expertly blend the finest teas to delight the refined palates of discerning tea lovers. The company possesses state-of-the-art facilities, ensuring excellence at every stage of tea processing and packing. Available online, in supermarkets and in retail outlets, Makaibari has found its way into thousands of discerning households globally. Across the world, Makaibari invites you to pause and savor the symphony of nature's bounty and human artistry, one cup at a time.
It is a fact universally acknowledged that the works of Jane Austen continue to provoke and inspire and entertain us even 250 years on. We are celebrating 250 years of Jane Austen at the Excite Kolkata Literary Meet. In our next session, Austen-tatious. We're delighted to have with us Kate Evans and Debnita Chakravarti. Kate is a British writer, cartoonist, multimedia artist, and public speaker. Patchwork is her 8th work of graphic non-fiction based on the quilt that Jane Austen created in the later years of her life. You can see it displayed at the Alipur courtyard, the Alipur Museum courtyard, as you're coming into the venue. Our next guest for this session, Debnita Chakravarti, is Associate Professor in the Department of English, Sri Shikshadan College, Calcutta. She is among the lucky few to have spent a scholar residence at Shorten, researching at the Great House Archives and the Jane Austen Museum. I now hand over to both Debnita and Kate.
Thank you, Shahana. Thank you for joining us in today's session. Welcome to the Kolkata Literary Meet. Welcome, Kate, to Kolkata and the Kolkata Literary Meet. As you know that we are celebrating 250 years of Jane Austen. Her birthday was on the 16th of December. And throughout the winter of 2025-26, there are very many events around the globe marking this landmark literary anniversary. And Kate here has joined us in celebrating this. This is KLM's tribute to beloved author who's not only stood the test of time, but seems to be running up her popularity with each passing year. And she's here with a book which is remarkable. It's called Patchwork. So, can you see it? Yeah. And so this is the book.
I can't go on the stage, because if I go on the stage, I can't see the presentation.
Yeah, we need to see the presentation.
This is why I'm here, being like a pop star, walking in the audience.
So I know that for all panelists, all sessions and all books are special. We say every book is different. But believe you me, this book, in all my years of moderating literary fests, I've never worked with a book like this. In all our years of reading books, if all shapes and sizes, brands and breeds, I've never read anything like this. Neither, I promise, have you. So such a different book that it warrants a different session. We are down here, and we will start with a presentation because a lot of it is visual. Yes, Kate? We'll start the presentation now?
Yeah, hello. Next slide.
Could we have the presentation, please?
It's got the cover. Hi. So, yeah, my name's Kate Evans. Next slide. Nikita, I'm just going to go like that. Right. So I wanted to bring you the real Jane Austen. I think a lot of people have an idea of their own Jane Austen that they have maybe put together from Bollywood interpretations, you know, BBC adaptations. I wanted to strip back and find the real Jane Austen. And I was in quite a good position to do it because this is my grandmother's house. I grew up in the situation where there are 3 or 4 families in a country village. Such a thing as Jane Austen wanted to work upon. And I found that when I embarked on the project of bringing Jane Austen's life, I found little resonances with her life and mine. That's my grandmother's staircase, that's my grandmother's garden, and this here... Oh, I can't do that then. But that was my grandmother's toast rack. I'm not going to try that one again. Next slide. And what really inspired me when I approached Jane Austen's story, I mean, Jane Austen, for so many people, it's their happy place. They can escape into Jane Austen's novels, and it is a world that is so immersive and so pleasant to visit. So I always loved Jane Austen. But when I discovered that Jane Austen had made a patchwork quilt, next slide, it was like the coalition of my life and hers, because I also love to make quilts. Next slide. In fact, this is me and my friend Stephanie, and what we did was we drank lots of gin and tonic. We made that quilt together over 2 days. And I think this expresses why I love quilts, because when you give someone a patchwork quilt, it's like giving them a warm hug, you know? But as well as that, like patchwork, it works in a lot of different ways as a metaphor in the artistic process. So, Jane Austen made a quilt. I've showed a representation of her. She's on the right. I'm not very good at rights and lefts. She's on the right at the front sewing. Her sister Cassandra in the blue was arranging the quilt, as I thought it would have happened. Their friend Martha is helping to sew it. And then it ends up on their mother's bed. Now, the quilt exists. You can visit it at Chawton House in Hampshire, in England. Next slide. But I knew then that I could take the fabrics of the quilt and I could use them to illustrate her life. So here's my representation of Jane's birth, and it uses the patchwork quilt fabrics in it. And then, next slide. And then this is like when she meets some mystery guy at the sea. And next slide. And then at the end of the chapters, I could start building up the fabric patches. And that is a way that a patchwork quilt is, because when I look at a patchwork quilt that I've made, it's got fabrics in it that are meaningful to me. And just that same way, the Austen quilt will have contained a bit of her curtains, a bit of her dress, a bit of her mother's curtains. We'll never know which is which. But each of those patchwork segments, they come together and they make a living history in this piece of fabric. And patchwork was actually also an excellent analogy for my creative process. Now, I invented a way of creating a graphic biography, very much by instinct. And what I do is I read everything by the person, not particularly interested in what other people are writing about Jane Austen now. I'm interested in all of Jane Austen's actual words, and maybe the words of some of the people around her, some contemporary descriptions. So I took all of Austen's novels, I took her juvenile writings, I took what's left of her letters, because unfortunately, although she wrote her entire life in letters to her sister Cassandra then burnt 90% of them, which makes us Austen scholars get very upset with Cassandra. So I take all of these pieces and then I sort of arrange them thematically. So I have all the quotes you could possibly want that Jane Austen ever wrote about dentists, or all the quotes she ever wrote about getting married. And I arranged these became my patchwork pieces, and then I rearranged those to incorporate them into the text of the work that I'm writing. Next slide. So the way that it works, I just show, first on the left, you have the sketch that I will have done the first time through. I'll sketch out each page of the novel. And then this is just a little brief reading of it. March 1808, Jane picks her way through coils of rope in the Docklands. Next slide. The Austen women have washed up in Southampton. Frank has decided that they will be company for his wife Mary. Oh my gosh, I'm coming forward. Nothing's going to squeak. It's more than a year since they left Bath with what happy feelings of escape. And that's a quote from Austen's letters. It's a crystal bright morning, March, but it feels like April in its mild air and brisk soft wind. Everything looks so beautiful under such a sky. The shadows pursuing each other on ships at anchor in the bay, the ever-varying hues of the sea dancing in its glee, dashing against the ramparts. Next slide. Jane gains the sand and pauses, this is a quote from Persuasion, and pauses as all must linger and gaze on a first return to the sea, whoever deserved to look on it at all. Frank and Charles are out there somewhere. Jane is 32 years old, unmarried and unafraid. Next slide. So that is some of the way in which I patchwork Jane's letters, writings together in order to create the text of her life. But also there was another aspect to the quilt that I thought brought a particularly additional aspect to Austen's story. And that is that the quilt actually exists. Next slide. And these fabrics came from somewhere. In particular, they came from India. Next slide. So I took, in the center section of the book, I created a fabric embroidery. And that's the thing that's on display just beyond this building here. And in it, I explain, I give voice to the people who created the fabrics that Austen works with. Jane takes 2 precious pieces of Dakar muslin and stitches them together, a shawl that she will wear for the end of her days. Next slide. So we piece together Jane's words like patchwork, but there are other voices in this fabric if we choose to hear them. The year is 1809. A woman sits at dawn in a boat on the River Meghna and spins, and as she spins, she sings. A woman of unparalleled skill, she twists a thread 1/3 of the thickness of human hair. Just 20 pounds of this cotton would stretch the 5,000 miles from where she sits in Dhaka, Bengal, to Jane in Hampshire, England. Her words are preserved in snatches of song, passed from mother to daughter, a thread going back through time. Next slide. The British East India Company, a private corporation which has the power to raise an army, invade a country, tax the populace, mint a currency, and spend the funds thus raised upon more soldiers to consolidate its hold. And its business? Cloth, perfect, brilliant, and beautiful. More than 75% of its exports are textiles, tens of millions of yards per year. The year is 1809. Jane's brother Frank is escorting a convoy of East India Company cargo. The company gifts him £1,000 for his service. Next slide. The great Warren Hastings, one time Governor General of Bengal. He relaxes by his fireside at his grand estate in Gloucestershire, England, bought with East India Company funds. Indian maidens ornament the fire surround. The arms of his chair are carved into tiger heads. The ceiling cornices are gilded lotus leaves. The furnishings are all, of course, of the finest Indian chintz. Warren Hastings went off to India to seek his fortune, and became so rich that he could casually gift £10,000 to Eliza, a child who was not even his daughter. Now, Eliza is Jane Austen's cousin. And Warren Hastings is either her godfather or maybe her father. Indian weaver's money bequeathed to Eliza, and then Eliza then marries Henry, Jane's brother, becomes Henry's upon marriage, and that Henry then funds Sense and Sensibility. So Jane shall have the use of this money to stand surety for her publication ventures. Such are the threads that crisscross the fabric of society. So I think I'm the first person to point this out, that Sense and Sensibility was printed with Indian money. Next slide. Yeah, so that's my little presentation. I might have a few more things to come back to specifically on Jane Austen and India, but also I am very eager to hear what Debnita has to contribute to the discussion too. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. That was absolutely amazing, like the book. And, before coming to the session, if you were thinking about, because she's such a familiar figure, what more can one say about Jane Austen? And every UG and PG syllabus worth its salt will never have left the polite parlors of Pleasant Jane. So that's your answer. That's how new it is. And though she doesn't look a day older than 249, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I don't think she looks 250 years old, does she? No.
Not at all. Right. I mean, so you get an overview of what the book is about. And it's a metaphor, it's a mirror hall of metaphors, isn't it? You started with Jane Austen's patchwork quilt. You had a quilt of your own. And you built in, like you say, it's beautifully said here, we are making diamonds. And the entire book is interspersed with these diamonds cut from the fabrics. We are making diamonds, she says. Compressed carbons, sparkling crystals, formed from the hard facts we know of Jane Austen's life. And then you go snip, snip, and build the biography.
Yeah, it's sort of like a way of combining facts and poetry. I was literally going for a walk and walking the dog, and I was like, compressed carbon, sparkling diamonds. And now here it is in the page, and I'm here talking about it. I really can't believe my luck.
Right. So I'll take the title, which is remarkable. And we come from a land of patchwork ourselves. Bangla
yes.
has this tradition of katha, patchwork. And she knows all about it and is very happy to see a bit of it. If we take the patch part first, you put in patches of Jane Austen's life. You build a biography, a graphic biography. And what you've done is, we've had contextual readings of Jane Austen, we've had textual readings. This is what? This is a textilian reading? We'll have to make up words now.
Well, there's different ways on which a graphic biography can bring added things to somebody's life. I mean, it's like I'm creating a film of Jane Austen's life, but I have an unlimited script, unlimited budget. I can create any building, I can create any costume, I can include as many extras as I can be bothered to draw, because, to be honest, I really don't like drawing crowds of people. It's my least favorite thing.
Right. It's a good thing that she wrote about 2 or 3 village families.
I'll just get a couple of people in a country village, that's
It's not Thackeray,
Yeah,
thankfully.
Yeah, but another thing that a graphic biography can do is you can make visual metaphors as well as you can make literary metaphors.
Right. So what she does, and I think she does it so touchingly, and I use touchingly in an informed manner, is that she starts by saying snow blankets Steventon Rectory, frost traces patterns. So this idea of the fabric of Jane Austen's life is being built up from the first word itself. Have you ever read an author through fabric, through textiles? That's what this book does.
And it was really interesting reading Jane Austen's work and noticing all the references to the creation of textiles that there is all the way through her novels. So I think when we see the costume dramas, you just see 2 women sitting taking tea. But in reality, those women would have been working at all times. They would have been sewing at every moment. They would carry their work with them. The sewing machine hadn't been invented yet. And although women in Austen society were very strictly regulated by class, the upper class women were very busy. They were busily employed. And we don't see that in modern costume drama. They don't realize that this is what was happening at that time. But those references are all the way through there. Fanny Price will take up her work, but so will Lady Bertram in Mansfield Park. Absolutely the top tier of society. When Sir Thomas comes back from Antigua, Lady Bertram knows that she has nothing to fear. She has spent her time usefully. She has done a great deal of carpet work and made many yards of fringe.
So the Penelope mode has never gone out of women. You could take women out of the classical age.
Yeah.
So Odysseus is out and Penelope is weaving. She's
Yeah.
doing her tapestry.
Yeah,
here the
and
women-
metaphors of fabric are fundamental to society. But because fabric is primarily worked by women, and because fabric disappears after 100 years, it's like women's work and women's labour has vanished from the historical record.
Right. So this is the second part of it, the work part. And like you correctly say, women's work is never done. So if clothes make it the man, it's the women who make it the clothes.
Yes, yeah.
Right? and it's always, and you see it right from girlhood. The boys are outside playing. The girls are sitting very straight up doing their samplers.
Yeah, and there's a reference to that in Northanger Abbey, where Henry Tilney turns to Catherine Morland and said, "Oh, when you were a good girl sewing your sampler," and she goes, "Not such a good girl, I'm afraid," because she was outside playing cricket, which I'm quite pleased that Austen makes that reference. Playing cricket and baseball.
Right.
Which is
right.
actually the first in-print reference to the word baseball.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm a mine of Austen trivia, I really tell you.
I can tell that. Even when the girls are playing, and you have an entire page where they roll down the hillside, then there's the very next frame is Dame Bushell washing out the grass stains. So someone does the work, and it's women who do the invisible work.
Yeah, and actually the servant class is largely invisible within Austen's novels. You can see references to maybe Miss Bates in Emma. Miss Bates in Emma, she has direct contact with the servant class. She was the daughter of the vicar in the rector so she would have had that connection with people of all classes. And it's very much to Miss Bates's credit that you can see that she's an active charity outreach person in that regard. But in general, servants are sort of ignored in both in Austen's letters and in her books. It's such a class-based system that those are people who
Over the
she
stairs,
cannot
under
see.
the stairs. Very...
But then, of course, I'm drawing Austen from my perspective. So on the very first page, we have Mrs. Hilliard, who is actually the Austen servant. She tucks in the baby, draws the bed curtains tight against drafts, shutters the windows, banks up the fire, picks up a pail of unmentionable linens and ushers young Cassandra from the room. So although the scene is about the birth of Austen, of Jane Austen, the mother is lying in bed with the baby, but it's Mrs. Hilliard who's manipulating the fabrics and who's taking care of the situation, and I make sure to draw her.
Right. And these characters come in, these many voices come in the process of this little girl becoming Jane, and you show that beautifully. You can all make out there's this strong feminist reading of Jane Austen's life and works in here. And through Reverend Austen, you bring in the religion and the politics as well, don't you, a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, Jane was Christian, and so I start the book with her, I show her baptism at the beginning of her book, and I show at the end of the book that she takes Holy Communion. I try and contextualize it with that. But also, I mean, you have to fit a whole life into 180 pages, and because there are so many pictures on each page, you've got very, very little text to play with. I'm quite... and I don't just talk about Austen's life. I talk about her life and her work. So I show you what Sense and Sensibility is like, what Pride and Prejudice is like. I use quotes from them, and then I make little comic illustrations of those books. So, because it's no point just saying all the things Jane Austen did. I need to show you who she was. And you only know who she was if you know what she wrote. And I hope that people will come to the book who love Austen already, but I also hope that people will encounter the book who haven't really been that interested in Jane Austen and will discover her through my work. Because it's a comic book, man. It's a little bit more accessible.
And you bring in the juvenilia brilliantly, what you call the incendiary underbelly of her work.
Oh, you see,
Not many people know that.
So Jane Austen starts off writing at the age of 12. Now, her father gives her access to expensive paper and pens, and she's at that point not in any formal education, so she has the freedom to write as much as she wants. Now, her early writings are hilariously weird.
The beautiful Cassandra.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not just... So I provide an illustration of all of these. Hang on. Charles Adam was an amiable, accomplished and bewitching young man of so dazzling a beauty that none but eagles could look him in the face. And like literally these characters go to a masked ball later and they say there is a character who was believed to be in the person of the sun, but it was discovered that that was Charles Adam with his dazzling beauty, and none could look on him. Like the sun is radiating out of his face. She writes plays in which... She writes a play called The Mystery, and nothing happens in The Mystery that you can ever find out. It's just somebody coming on stage going, "Oh, what is the news? Oh, thank you for telling me all about this news." And then they leave the stage. It's like a modernist masterpiece. And most famously, she has a little play called A Little Story that she writes to her sister Cassandra, about her sister Cassandra. Cassandra was the daughter of a celebrated milliner in Bond Street. So Cassandra walks from her mother's shop to make her fortune. The first person she met was the Viscount of Blank, a young man no less celebrated for his accomplishments and virtues than for his elegance and beauty. Ooh, what's going to happen with the Viscount here? She curtsied and walked on. Cassandra then proceeded to a pastry cook where she devoured 6 little ice creams, refused to pay for them, knocked down the pastry cook and walked away. I mean, she is an anarchic, agent of chaos. And this is where Austen starts from. And obviously her later novels are much more fully fledged and fleshed out, amazing artistic works of novelistic, that they are novelistically so ahead of their time. She basically invents the novel form in English as we know it. But underlying it, there is this little tiny streak of sort of sarcasm, almost violence in the way that she speaks about people just in a slightly scathing way. And I think that's a side of Austen that maybe hasn't been explored that much.
Right. Apart from the fact that, you're talking about her life, you do a fair bit of lit crit in it as well. And like you said, a person who started off writing these parodies goes on to write these very subtle, layered narratives. So you rightly said that she is considered to be the first modern novelist, where she is doing the internal monologue. She is doing the unreliable narrator in Emma, isn't she?
I mean, so I did a literary degree. I never did an art degree. I can't draw. So actually, I'm here to show that you don't need an art degree in order to be able to draw. So I did a literature degree, and at the time when I was doing a literature degree in the 1990s, it was very much about the death of the author. The words of the intention of the author is not important. It's just purely the relationship of the reader with the words on the page. It was kind of a weird time for literary criticism. And then before that, the idea was very much, what is the intention of the author in writing this? Now, what was interesting in approaching telling the story of Jane's life and showing the meaning of her work is I could look at the unconscious intention of Jane when she's writing some of her novels by studying them against the point in her life when she's writing them. So, I mean, Pride and Prejudice is fairly straightforward and uncomplicated. She's still living at home with her parents in Steventon Rectory. She's in her early 20s. She's an excited and brilliant, capable author who's writing this book, First Impressions, that was the original name of Pride and Prejudice, in order to show it to her friends and to have fun. Obviously, she dreams of being a published author, but there's no particular pressure upon her to write. So Pride and Prejudice, quite straightforward. It's a very different story when it comes to Mansfield Park. Now, by the time Jane sits down to write Mansfield Park, she's been uprooted from Steventon Rectory, and her mother has spent 10 long years taking her around Bath and Southampton, attempting, very unsuccessfully, to get her married. Okay.
She almost did.
Oh, yeah, I mean, there was a couple of offers. I mean, the issue here is that
Overnight thing.
Jane was a bit fussy as well. Jane wasn't really that interested in signing over, possibly because she still genuinely had dreams of getting her work published. So we should be very, very lucky and grateful that she didn't get married, because otherwise we wouldn't have the rest of her work. She would almost certainly, like all of her brothers' wives, have had 10 children and died.
It's very interesting in the book that, she has an offer of marriage. She considers it for one night, and the next morning she goes and says no, much to the dismay of her family.
Yeah.
And then there is a very touching part in the book where you don't name the man. There might not be a man. It's just conjecture. The fact that she's in love, she's at the seaside.
Oh, we get a mystery romance as well.
Romance,
yeah,
exactly.
But don't tell them all the spoilers.
I won't, absolutely. But I can tell you.
Can I go back to Mansfield Park?
You can.
Oh, yeah. So she's had this 10 years of being dragged, and she was really depressed, I think we can assume, in the time when she was in Bath. She didn't have a room of one's own in which to write. And there was no creative output that is useful from that time. I mean, she started a draft of a novel called The Watsons, but it's really not very good. And so then she finds her actual home, and she's given the use of a cottage in Chawton, and she sets up, and she gets Sense and Sensibility published, she gets Pride and Prejudice published, and then she sets out writing Mansfield Park. And Mansfield Park is a very strange book. But I think for me, what she's unconsciously expressing in Mansfield Park is a dangerous family in which everything is wrong. And I think what she's doing there, she doesn't have any therapy, yeah? She can't go to counselling. What she's doing is exploring all of the unconscious ideas about being in a family and being trapped in a family, not having any agency over her own direction. And she creates this character, Fanny Price, who has no agency or direction, control over her own life. And if you see all the people who are flirting in Mansfield Park, the Crawfords, they're all very dangerous. And it's like a rejection of all the flirting that has been going on in Bath. She's kind of exploring unconscious themes. And I don't think you could sit Jane Austen down and ask her about any of this, because I don't think any of it was acknowledged by her. But it's interesting being able to make a representation of that where you can show Mansfield Park in the context of Austen's life.
And I like the reading where you sort of offer and ask readers whether they would consider Fanny Price without agency to be the Austen women, to be displaced from their home, or even the differently abled George Austen, who was her brother and, never heard of in family history.
So there's a few things in Austen's life which I think are quite resonant for her, but again, most biographies have overlooked. One is that at the age of, from the age of 3 months to the age of 2, she didn't live with her mother. She didn't live with her father. She lived in the village in a farm worker's cottage. And I think that's a very fundamental disruption. The idea that you can be a baby and then everything can be upheaval and you can go and live with this family who are essentially strangers. And then you were taught to despise the woman who loved you and raised you. I think that's a fundamental disruption that English upper-class people visit upon their children in order basically to make them into the kind of psychopaths that can build this kind of a jail. And the other thing is that the Austen have a boy called George, who is their second son, and they work out fairly early on that he probably has an intellectual impairment. And so he goes off to live in the village, and he never comes back. He's not even mentioned in Mrs. Austen's will. When he dies, not one member of their family goes to his funeral when he dies as an old man. So he's completely segregated from the Austen family. And that was a deliberate choice by the Austen family, because we have an interesting parallel story in that cousin Eliza, the one who was the goddaughter of Warren Hastings, she has a son of her own who she names Hastings after her godfather, definitely. Anyway, and Hastings also has this intellectual impairment, and she loves Hastings, and she takes him sea bathing, and she raises him, and she teaches him to read with some difficulty. So this story of intellectual disability is there in Austen family story, and it was a real privilege to be able to bring that to life, because then this is also an aspect of Austen's life that I don't think anybody has seen before.
We know about Austen's Calcutta Connect, and we are very glad that she's coming back to Kolkata on her 250th. So through you, we do know about the graveyard and Eliza's connection here with Hastings.
I have a few more slides which are about Austen and the mentions of India inside Austen's. Let's just see if the people are they still awake at the back there. Hello. Hi, Nikita. You're doing a great job. Are there any more slides? I think there were more slides. Oh, yeah, okay. So I want to talk about how Austen talks about India. Now, what Austen does... Oh, God, I can't go over there, can I? It'll squeak. Okay, I'm coming over here. Right. So what Austen does is she only writes for her own experience. And she's so strict about this that she has very great difficulty even writing about successfully accepting a proposal, because nobody that she's genuinely in love with ever asked her to marry her. So it's really quite remarkable that somebody who writes romances has such a great deal of difficulty. So, Mr. Knightley proposes to Emma, and then it says, and what did she say? Just what she should. A lady always does. And you're like, Jane, you've got no idea what she would have said. So Jane only writes from her own experience. So for her, naval captains are just people who go off into the distance and then come back. I mean, where Frank Austen was in the meantime, after he left, as in he was in the East Indies, that's not real to her. So that's not part of her books. Next slide. And similarly, her brother Henry, he's in the militia. He's just like wow, sexy guy. I mean, like, that is literally what their uniforms looks like. They used to wear white knitted trousers to cling around the legs. Like, oh my gosh. Anyway, so that is Henry. That's an accurate picture of Henry Austen. But we don't really confront what Henry Austen was doing in the militia. Like in 1799, he was in Ireland. He was part of the troops who were suppressing the Irish uprising. So exactly what he does there, that's not part of Austen's novels. So we have this kind of a blank where India could be. And we've actually got a few references, though, that are direct references to India. So we have, just as part of casual conversation in Sense and Sensibility, we have, Colonel Brandon, he's told you in the East Indies the climate is hot and the mosquitoes are troublesome. They're just saying, they're just saying the obvious things. Perhaps, said Willoughby, his observations may have extended to the existence of nabobs, goldmoors, and palanquins. And this is interesting. So this is India as background. I mean, some things we can find out from this. Nabob is, I'm probably saying everything wrong, okay? I've only ever seen it written down. Nabobs are the white Englishmen who've gone over to Kolkata. They have managed to survive the first 3 years, where apparently about a third of them died. Oh, what a shame. Anyway, and then they come back to England incredibly enriched with the wealth that they've sucked out of this land. A gold moor is a 15 rupee gold coin, so that says something about inflation in the intervening time. And since we're talking about palanquins, next slide. I went to Powys Castle in Wales. I drove there specially because I knew I had been invited here to Kolkata. And what we have there is Robert Clive's loot. Yeah. And what we have here is the palanquin of, I can't go over there and look, but it's like Sirad al-Dawla. He was at the Battle of Plassey. Okay, just tell me how I say this. Suraj-ud-Dawla. Okay, thank you. Anyway, this is his actual palanquin. It's a really bad photograph because when I got to Powys Castle, they said, no, you can't take photographs. I was like, I'm sorry. You've taken Suraj-ud-Dawla's palanquin. You have this jeweled tiger heads with rubies, and I can't take a photo. Stop. Next slide. And the other two references that we have to India in Austen's work are about fabric in her published novels. There's another one in the Juvenilia that I got to put in. Anyway, so do you understand muslin, sir? This is Henry Tilney. I just think Henry Tilney is the best hero. Like, I know people like Darcy, yeah? But Darcy's very grumpy. Like, who would you want to live with? Darcy being all upset about things, or Henry Tilney, who's like, he's amenable, he's nice, and he understands muslins. Do you understand muslins, sir? Particularly well. I always buy my own cravats, and I'm allowed to be an excellent judge. And my sister's often trusted me in the choice of a gown. I bought one for her the other day, and it was pronounced by a prodigious bargain. I gave but 5 shillings a yard for it, and a true Indian muslin. Just 5 shillings a yard, guys. Okay, and the last reference we have, next slide, is in Mansfield Park. William must not forget my shawl if he goes to the East Indies, and I shall give him a commission for anything else that is worth having. I wish he must go to the East Indies that I may have my shawl. I think I will have 2 shawls, Fanny. You just gave me a shawl, didn't you? I should give me the shawl. It's like the yellow thing. It's in there. Anyway, yeah, I shall have my shawl. I should have had this ready as a prop. Anyway, I have my shawl. It's patchwork and the shawl. Of course it is, a patchwork. Okay, next slide, because that's kind of, yeah, thank you.
Right, and so from the clothes, the embroidery, constant embroidery that women of all classes are doing, utilitarian work, embroidery, from the clothes to the cloth being actually made by the women in the colonies. I will leave you to discover that in the book, because this is a book which is not a PDF read. As you can understand, it's a book you want on your bookshelf. It is absolutely beautiful. It's an artifact. You want to hold it. You want to literally touch it. So I'm going to let you do that on your own. And we have time only for a couple of questions before we need to wrap up. So any questions, anyone? I think the presentation is self-explanatory, and then the book will be there. But if you have any questions, of course, you can chat with Kate later on. She'll be here for a couple more sessions. Yes? You know what, I think it was Virginia Woolf who said that Jane Austen, among all the great authors, was the most difficult to catch in the act of greatness. And that is something that is so relevant to this book, the fact that we've had so many sessions by Jeff Dyer, by Banu Mushtaq, who magic the mundane, who are celebrating the quotidian. And you are doing that with Jane Austen so brilliantly. And I think it took 250 years and an author who loved quilting for us to understand how great Jane Austen really is. Yes, you had a question? Could we have a mic there?
Do you have a mic?
Just keep it brief, thank you. I just wanted to ask you, why exactly, what exactly prompted you? Was it a thought process for quite some time?
What prompted me? What was the thought process?
Beyond this book.
On a commercial level, I did know that it was about to be her 250th anniversary. But then also on a commercial level, I managed to break the ligament in my thumb twice during the drawing process and have to learn how to draw with my fingers. So that was both a blessing and a curse, really. It was the patchwork. It was the fact that the 2 halves of my life coming together. But I don't, I don't know. I always have a few people in my head that I think I would like to do. And then also, you know what? The world is pretty bad at the moment, you know? Like, the planet is literally on fire. So I just really enjoy hiding and pretending it's 250 years ago and draw carriage wheels with the correct number of spokes.
And horses, which you love drawing.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
So don't ask her for selfies. Don't ask her for autographs. Ask her for selfies. She has bad hand. And I think we need to wrap up on this note.
What was the most spectacular thing you found after you got into this about Jane Austen?
I genuinely think it was the fact that fabric is so central to the story of British Empire. Because I didn't know that fabric was the engine of empire that moved from one place to another. So, I mean, I love telling Jane's story, but in this central interlude part, which is also a tapestry, which is literally the other side of that building, and you can go and look at after this talk, I talk about how fabric came into being, and I link East India Company, Lancashire cotton mills, Americans, enslaved people in the Americas, and the fact that that was all exploding at the actual timeline of Austen's life was such a perfect sort of like coincidence.
Right, so threads which crisscross the fabric of society, and these conversational threads crisscrossing through these 5 days of Kolkata Literary Meet. We'll go on to other sessions now, and thank you so much for joining us at this very special birthday party of Jane Austen.
Thank you so much.